Was Luke actually the chosen one? If he wasn't, why did Obi-Wan seem to think he was? Which was what was alluded to in the episode of Star Wars Rebels, Twin Sons, when he confirmed to Maul right before he died that he was on Tatooine to guard the chosen one. Well, when you really think about it, it only makes sense that Obi-Wan would think and want to believe that Luke is the chosen one. Because something you have to keep in mind is that Obi-Wan doesn't have the luxury of perspective that we all do. Meaning he not only doesn't know that Anakin will be redeemed someday, he likely doesn't believe it's even remotely possible after everything he's seen Anakin do. Keep in mind that Obi-Wan has had an up-close and personal view of the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker. He was there when Anakin was first discovered on Tatooine, when he was just a 9-year-old boy so selfless that his mother said of him that he gives with no thought of reward. And indeed, Anakin risked his life pod racing, albeit something he loved to do, just to help some virtual strangers he'd met on the street only hours before, having no way of knowing they'd actually free him and take him with them. We know that as a child he dreams of becoming a Jedi, not to become powerful, but so that he can come back to Tatooine to free all the slaves, something he never actually does when he becomes a Jedi, though likely because the Council wouldn't allow it, mainly because they'd gotten wrapped up too much in politics to remember what their place in the galaxy was, and they wouldn't want him to have contact again with his mother. Then, over the years, Obi-Wan sees this once altruistic boy become a hot-headed and arrogant teenager who can't seem to learn his place, as Obi-Wan says to him in Episode 2. He disobeys orders from his masters on a whim, and even risks the life of the one he's supposed to be protecting, Padme, by going to Tatooine because he fears for his mother's safety. And time again in the Clone Wars animated series, we see that Anakin disobeys the orders of the Jedi Council, though he usually gets some positive results when he does it, but it shows his lack of discipline and his self-assuredness. Then in Episode 3, Obi-Wan learns that Anakin, who had become like a brother to him at this point, has been lying and keeping a secret from him all these years, that being that he's married Padme and even has gotten her pregnant, and never confided in him, despite the fact that Anakin knows that Obi-Wan once loved too, that being his love for Duchess Satine of course, and likely would have understood and maybe even helped him. Then, at the end, Obi-Wan first sees a recording of Anakin murdering children, and when he goes and confronts him, he witnesses him choke Padme out of anger, which was probably about the very last straw for Obi-Wan that a shred of good could still exist in his former Padawan. Anakin then proclaims that he has brought peace and security to his new empire, and tells Obi-Wan there is either being with him or against him, an absolute that only Sith deal in. Anakin then proceeds to hold nothing back in their duel and is very much hell-bent on killing Obi-Wan. And when he lays defeated and Obi-Wan tries one last time to talk a little bit of sense into him, Anakin can do little more than scream that he hates him. It's at that moment that Obi-Wan, from his point of view, knows it's impossible for Anakin to be the chosen one spoken of in the prophecy. He even says to him, "You were the chosen one. It was said you would destroy the Sith, not join them." And as far as we know, the prophecy does indeed say little more than that one will come about that will destroy the Sith and balance the Force. So if Anakin has not only become a Sith, but one with seemingly no shred of light left in him from Obi-Wan's perspective, how could he be the one that destroys them, meaning why would he eventually destroy himself? So either the prophecy was wrong, or it spoke of another, again, from Obi-Wan's point of view. Another important factor in all this is the guilt and responsibility Obi-Wan no doubt feels. It was he who trained Anakin, and in his mind who failed him, and who is responsible for Darth Vader and every atrocity he commits. Yes, Obi-Wan knows that Anakin, like all the Jedi, were deceived by Palpatine, but even if he does know the extent of the manipulation of Anakin, it's likely that it won't ease too much of his guilt. He probably thinks if he would have trained him better, Palpatine's plan for Anakin would have failed, and ultimately perhaps Palpatine's entire plan would have failed, and he would have never become Emperor of the Galaxy. One last thing to remember is that Obi-Wan also says of Anakin in Return of the Jedi, when speaking to Luke, that he is more machine now than man, twisted and evil, and that's exactly what he thinks of him. And when Luke goes on to say in the same conversation that he can't do it, he can't kill his own father, Obi-Wan simply says then that the Emperor has already won. He doesn't consider the words he once said in A New Hope when the Falcon was being pulled in by the Death Star. You can't win, but there are alternatives to fighting. And that alternative for Luke was to turn his father back to the light, something Obi-Wan thought was literally impossible. But thanks to Luke's lack of perspective about his father, Luke believed it was possible and pulled it off. Simply put, Anakin is the chosen one. There is no real debate here. Just because Obi-Wan doesn't believe he possibly could be at this point in the timeline, and again, who could blame him for doubting, doesn't mean that he isn't. It just means that Obi-Wan has to believe that somehow Luke was the one the prophecy spoke of, the one who would destroy the Sith, and that can somehow right all the wrongs that he feels responsible for. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Let me know what you think about Obi-Wan's belief that Luke is the chosen one in the comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. Also, please subscribe to my channel or check out some of my other videos. If you're already a subscriber, then thanks for your continued support. If you want to know when I upload new videos, then hit the notification button or follow me on Twitter. And as always, thanks for watching.